if you are the type of woman who was on the writing staff for She-Hulk, you will love this movie.
Yes. Perfect.
Right.
Perfect. Yeah. That's a perfect corollary.
Yeah.
This idea of like Indy getting knocked out by her and like dragged back to his apartment in New York, and like she basically saves him. What a way for
after
this
he
character
says he wants
to
to
end.
die, which...
Well, a strong male lead now being a sad, broken old man who just wants to like give up and die. That's a pretty much standard procedure for Disney at this point. But again, it just plays into all the stupid memes that like have become so predictable and trite that we make fun of them now. But it's like they just keep doing it. It's like, oh, what former male hero are going to destroy now and turn into a sad, pathetic old man? And they could do something crazy like have him actually still be awesome. But no, that would be wrong. They have to just play into it every time.
Well, then you'll absolutely love the first episode of Strange New Worlds where the IT department descends on the bridge and Ortegas tells the nerd that she's rewired her console so it would be better than what the men built initially.
Of course,
really?
It is.
True.
Yes, I almost threw up in my cupcake.
Wasn't it nice that like we had one little good, like we had this little blip of like good Star Trek with Picard season 3, and then it's like straight back to business as usual.
Oh my
like,
God!
Time for your next dose of shit, boys.
Oh, and the IT department is okay. Are they white and males? I'll give you 8 seconds.
I would say yes.
Yes, you are correct.
Yeah.
And fat. And they got beards. They look like Linux programmers.
How did Star Trek devolve into this? Because it was never supposed to be this. It was never supposed to be a parody of like 21st century memes and stereotypes and stuff. It was never supposed to be that. It was supposed to be something more thoughtful, but like it always has to.
Hollywood is there. That's where Hollywood is.
Yeah. I mean, is that just the mentality now? It's like we've got to push this stuff, even if people don't like it. We're just going to keep doing it.
I don't want to get into it too deeply, but there is a coterie of individuals who I encountered from 1990s. These are mean people, and they'll build fast friendships, and then when something goes wrong, they'll break up very hard and never see each other again. And I won't mention this group, and they're running things. And it's the Hollywood is no longer filled with people who want to have fun. It's just people who have an agenda. And Star Trek is just another agenda.
Do you think Picard, like the season 3 of Picard, was just a little
complete
outlier?
Accident. Yep.
Yeah. Because it kind of felt like it we'll just turn this failing series over to someone else, and like, lo and behold, he made something really good out of it. But like, why would we take notice of that? Let's just get back to what we do.
It's Kurtzman and crew took some Ferrari, ditched it into a tree, it exploded into fire, and then they just threw the keys over to Terry. Here, the car is yours. You drive it.
And he temporarily built like a really good car out of it.
Yeah.
Just for a little while.
That's right. And he dragged it out of the ditch, and he fixed it, and got the guys working on it, and everyone was shocked that he got it running. So,
I mean, we were talking earlier about just before you guys came on, we started talking about Indy, but Moller and I were talking about Velma and getting renewed for a second season. And as a former network executive yourself, like, you understand the supply and demand aspect of this. Like, what would be the justification for greenlighting a season 2 of something like that? The most derided show of all time.
It's generally not a second season. Cartoons generally are bought in multiple seasons because they cost so much to create, and they will reuse sequences that they've now rendered. Like they'll just reuse parts of that animation for the second season and repackage it. So it's almost a cost-saving thing. They almost have no choice but to do an animation minimum of 2 seasons.
Right. Okay.
I mean, a lot of people said that it looked like the second season was happening no matter what.
Yeah.
So,
and voice acting is cheap.
Yeah.
So that's generally the reason.
I mean, we were sort of discussing like how the atmosphere on set must be, or like in the sound booths and stuff. Like we're making season 2 of one of the most hated shows of all time. You know, it's not going to be good for morale.
Well, there's a dynamic where the actors fall into believing in the veracity of the product they're in. I've seen it a bunch of times. It's happened to me, where you really have no choice. You can't be cynical, or you can't do your job. So you end up believing in it, and then at the end of it, you're believing in it, and you think it's good. I've seen this a dozen times. It's just, you can't work any other way.
I mean, it kind of explains things like Rings of Power, where
yes,
you know, any rational person would look at it and just say, "This is terrible," you know. But like the cast are out there singing its praises; they're loving this. It's just they bought into it 100%.
Yep. It's they've drunk the Kool-Aid. It's the only way they could do it, and they really do believe in how good it is. They genuinely do.
Poor guys.
It's you know, when you've edited a film and you've been in the editing room for months, you think it's great.
It's like,
it.
Oh, you've
I don't
seen
know about
like
that.
4 months.
Well, it depends on who it is.
I mean, I films that I've made, I go through a noting process. I mean, I get a lot of notes, and I'll do rounds of notes and kind of save it for filmmaker friends of mine who are really nitpicky. So, I mean, look, there's a documentary that I've been working on for a decade. For the last 2 years, I've been getting notes. My goal is always to make the next cut 1% better. I'm just trying to get to a 7 out of 10 as a movie. If I get to 70% on Rotten Tomatoes, that's, better than most. So, I don't know. Yeah, but it's like, I don't know. I think those are for filmmakers that enjoy the smell of their own farts or are in a bubble. And I just think that Kathleen Kennedy at Lucasfilm is a bubble. It's a bubble of people that think what they're doing is very good and think if the audience doesn't like it, they're, ists and phobes. And that strategy has been revealed to be BS. It's total BS. And I think that this is, and look, I haven't seen Crystal Skull in a long time. So I only saw it once when it came out in theaters, have not seen it since in any form, and I don't own that movie. But people are saying this movie is slightly better. I don't know. I just remember not liking that movie and thinking, well, there are 3 Indiana Jones movies that are really good. We've got those 3. Let's just leave it at that. So I can't really compare, but there's definitely a bubble that's been created at Lucasfilm. And when you look at like the experiences of people like Gina Carano and how she was ousted unceremoniously and probably against the wishes of Jon Favreau, like there's a culture there that is not resulting in the best stuff. And I always look at like, could the people doing these things creatively, could they make something original that would be interesting? I'm fairly certain the answer to that is no, but they are going to ride the agenda on the IP. And I think that audiences just are not down with it. And then there are people in the audience that are not going to notice it. They're just going to say, oh, that Helena girl was kind of lame and unlikable. I mean, we notice a bit, maybe, there's more to it, but audiences are just turned off. I mean, it's tracking to not do well. And
this is what I was going to ask about, actually, because it's tracking for a $60 million opening weekend, which is abysmally bad for an Indiana Jones movie. But like looking at the potential fallout from this, like it's apparently got a budget of in the region of 300 million. So this was an expensive movie to make, especially with all the reshoots they've done. I don't know how much of a patchwork quilt of a film it is, but this is going to have to make a lot of money in order to break even, and it's on track to not do that. It's going to lose money, most probably. Now, what would the fallout of that be, potentially, at Lucasfilm? Because,
I don't know.
Man, they have had nothing but failure. in the
Well,
past
I mean,
several
look,
years.
was there any fallout with the Star Wars sequel trilogy where the third film in the series makes half the money as the first film in that series? Force
I think
Awakens.
the fallout was the fact that they didn't make any more movies. They
Yeah.
were
Yes.
relegated to the realms of television, cheap stuff that went out into a streaming network, and so that's, I don't know. But it feels like if this sequel trilogy had been a massive success, we would still be getting Star Wars movies, probably like multiple times per year.
Yeah, I don't know that there'll be any fallout. I think there's a profound lack of leadership. I think when someone fails as miserably, I don't know how The Force Awakens got made without having a scene with Han, Luke, and Leia reunited. They should, and if you look at the season 3 of Picard, they took these much older actors. I think that is it LeVar Burton is the youngest at 69 years old.
Yep.
McFadden is 74, and everybody looked pretty good. I mean, Worf was really badass in that, with his look, and Riker, like I mean, why couldn't they have just taken, Carrie Fisher, Harrison Ford, and Mark Hamill and had a sort of final outing, and then handing the baton to younger characters to take over?
But that's not what Kathleen wanted. Kathleen wanted Rey front and center, wanted to bury the old crew as quickly as possible and destroy Luke. I mean, that was her plan.
How's that working out for you, Kathy?
Exactly.
I don't think she cares. She lives in a bubble.
Yeah.
There's no one around her that's ever saying she's done a bad job.
Yep.
I think some of the people I know,
bad girl.
The people I know that in Hollywood that are smarter are the ones that they want feedback. They would never have those conversations publicly. It would all be sweetness and light. It was great to work with so-and-so, whatever. But behind the scenes, I would argue that people in Hollywood are even more critical. I mean, I'm sure, Drinker, this has happened to you, and it happens to me, where people reach out in the industry saying, I like what you're doing. I like what you're saying. Keep saying it, but I can't say that I like you or watch you or anything, but good job. Okay. And then they go off and, they parrot the whatever the company line is, but I'm certain that's happened to you.
Well,
So,
the creative
And multiple times, yeah.
yes.
The creative people are mutually critical. When I was chumming around with Burt Metcalf in LA, who was the main director for MASH, was a Saskatoon boy, so I was trying to get all the expatriate Canadians up to Canada to teach us our shit that we didn't know how to do anymore. And Bert took me to the the Directors Guild Theater. They have their own theater.
Yeah.
So Steven Spielberg came down and just threw a rough cut in of, I can't remember which movie, and a bunch of directors, Friedkin, and we were sitting around and okay, and here's our notes to Steve. We hated this, loved this, and no one was mad at anyone because it was people at the top of their game and they respected each other.